Hello, hello. Excellent tea, Becky. Excellent. All right, so my name is Carl. We happen to be in Seattle. Not important. However, sometimes I'll refer to things as though you know that. And we're going to do two sauces today, two basic things. When I try to teach my daughter some basics of cooking, these are the first two things I showed her. We're going to do a red sauce, which is, for spaghetti, all things where you would use any kind of a red sauce. You can make it yourself, or you can go out and buy Prego. Prego's pretty good. But this is the way to do it yourself. Not vital, but I recommend you use some port. I recommend buying the cheapest port you can find. This happened to have been the cheapest port where we were doing some shopping. It seems unbelievable because that looks like it might be pricey, but believe me, it wasn't. But the cheapest stuff you can buy, as long as it says port, would be good. You want something that's sweet, and you can put in brown sugar along the way, or if you're a diabetic, some brown sugar Splenda. Nothing wrong with that. But port generally will give us enough sweetness so we don't have to add any sugar, because it's awfully doggone sugary. So I'm going to do something that you don't have to do to begin with. Let's see, we are going to set our oven very high. Very high would be like 450 or above. If you're making a pizza from scratch, you generally go 450 and above. We're not making pizza, but you use red sauce on pizza. And I'm going to take some rosemary that I just got. On every single block, somebody's got a rosemary bush in front of their house. And that's where I always get my rosemary. I never buy it. And we're going to roast it. You don't have to do that. You don't even have to have rosemary in this. We're also going to put in some red pepper, which we're going to roast a little bit. We're not going to roast these things much. And we're going to stick on some olive oil. And I hate the shows where they always say extra virgin olive oil. Well, you already know it's extra virgin, because that's all that anybody uses on TV, and that's really all you generally use at home. Unless it's specifically not supposed to be extra virgin, I'll just say olive oil, okay? Because I'm not going to waste my time, or yours, by saying extra virgin olive oil. You already know that. Let's see, and a little salt. I use kosher salt. You can use any kind of salt you want. Salt is salt, And that's not all the salt we're going to use in this, but that's all the salt we're going to use now for this. We're not going to let that go very far. We're not going to do it to the point where I like it. I like roasting rosemary to the point where it's almost black. It's really crispy. And we're not going to get there because I don't think we're going to take that much time doing it. But in any event, that's the way I enjoy using rosemary if I'm cooking, if I can. Alright, I'm putting in some butter. I'm also going to put in some olive oil. Doesn't make any difference how much butter or how much olive oil. Oh, and with butter, you always see Jacques Pepin say, we'll use 2 tablespoons of butter. Well, he never looks at the little things on the side which show you where the tablespoons are. He just always throws in 4 tablespoons of butter. Like if I had to guess, that's either 3 or 4 tablespoons right there. We don't need that much for what we're about to do. First off, we're going to take a couple carrots. To do this reasonably thoroughly, you wanna cook some carrots. You could already wash this. Of course, many people before I got it to my house wash the carrots. You don't need to wash these things really. And I'm not skinning it. You can if you want to. Let's see. Let's turn this on. All we're really doing here is softening it up. We're going to whiz this up. This is going into the red sauce. But before you put it in a blender, I recommend you make it soft. It doesn't have to be soft, but it just makes it a lot easier and quicker. The secret to all sauce is celery. Unless you're doing cheese sauce, which is the second what we're going to do today. You don't use celery in cheese sauce, oddly enough. But soup, always put in celery, oftentimes in sauce. And so I'm just going to take 3 stalks here, particularly with the greenish ends, because I love that. I'll oftentimes just use the very tops in salad. And this ought to be enough. We can start off by pouring a little port in there because we're going to need some liquid. We'll use a lot of port in this. Again, this is not vital. I think we'll throw in an onion now. We'd like to soften up the onion before we try to whiz that up. It doesn't make any difference how you cut up an onion. And remember, we're going to whiz it up, so it really makes no difference. It would be best if you took the peel off. Oftentimes that takes the first layer, but you know, who cares? You can use plastic or wood or rubber in a non-stick pan. If you use a metal spatula, like you so oftentimes nonchalantly see on television, you're going to ruin your pan. So don't do that. Okay, I'm going to bring in a blender. We're going to put all these things into here at some point. I'm going to put in some garlic. And, you know, you can go down and buy some garlic, which I do all the time, and cut it up. But hey, you could hire somebody to do it for you and buy a little jar of garlic. You know, it's exactly the same stuff. Alright, steam stuff. We're going to turn on the fan, which will be noisy of course, but why not? Okay, so we got carrots, celery, and onion. And a little liquid. You know, you could use water if you wanted to. You could use anything you wanted. You could use red wine, you could use white wine. We are going to put in a whole can of tomato paste. Any brand of tomato paste will do. Not important. But having tomato paste in this is important. I'm going to put in a little olive oil. When I say a little, I don't know how much. You saw it. You can put in any amount of olive oil you want. And now, how about some regular old tomatoes? I'm going to use 3 aromas. Dare I say fresh, as much as I hate using that word because I think it's really bogus. But it's not in a can. This may not be the answer. Sadly, it needs more liquid. That's right, more port. We could put in some more olive oil, but you know, you just need enough liquid in there so it can whiz on something. That's it, of course, it's done. Well, done enough. Oh yeah, well, I tell you, the rosemary is done. The peppers aren't, of course. But we don't need the peppers to be done, because, that's right, we're going to put it in a whizzer. Need more space for that, of course. Now, of course, the way I'm doing this, I'm making quite a bit of extra sauce here. I mean, we got a lot of sauce. And, of course, this freezes nicely. Sounds like we have a deep fat fire, but we don't. I'm going to take out this fabulous burn-up rosemary and let it cool. This will probably work. Might take some more liquid. We're getting to the point where I think, why don't we put some water in? Yeah, water. Alright, a little bit of water. Oh, Extra virgin olive oil in the United States always comes out to look like that, which is more or less yellow. In Italy, the real olive oil comes out green. It's really a bright green. So that's how dumbed down our extra virgin olive oil is here. I once asked a person in a three-star French restaurant about some wine he was serving. He was going to give us some Collier. And Collier in south central France makes an absolutely dreadful white wine. And he was going to serve us this white wine. And I said, well, you know, and I took a sip, of course, because I'm in a three-star restaurant, and it was brilliant. It was just great. And I said, you know, in the United States, we can't buy anything that tastes like that, which is called this name. And he said, oh, yeah, we do not sell this to the Americans. You know, we just don't export this kind of wine to anybody. We have it here. There's a limited quantity. And I said, yeah, okay. Okay, so now we got to taste this. As always, you need salt. You don't want to put too much salt in, but you never want to have too little. The secret to cooking is salt. Just like the secret of soup is celery. Without salt, you can't cook. Or you might as well not. Basically, that's done. You know, there's not much of anything else we can put in there. If you wanted to, of course, you could put in more port. You could put in a little sugar, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's pretty darn good. Excellent tea, Becky. Excellent.